Hey guys, it's List of Deaths. Like, comment, and subscribe if you like this type of content. For more of me, go to Twitch, and you can see clips of me strangling a banana.
in our studio, like with some bug devices or something. No, sorry, I called him Stefan because he spelled his name wrong.
Steven, Stefan, yeah. I'm not
But
sure how you pronounce it.
no, but yeah, that's absolutely something that that design and the character creator team has been, discussing. Stuff that we want to do is have unlockable features, as Stephen was discussing there, where like, oh, you have that scar because you participated in this siege or these many sieges, or
That would be a great
you
idea.
have this
I honestly
tattoo
believe that
because of
having
your
something to
of a
unlock
cultural
cosmetically
background or
would
because of a quest
benefit
that
the
was
game.
accomplished,
That's a lot of things
where
that
you're
I
able to get that.
would want
That's
in a
absolutely
lot of games.
a level of progression that makes the character creator relevant, not just at the start of your experience in an MMO, but it gives you a reason to visit those salons and make changes to your character as it grows and has a history, a background that can be communicated through these customization options. And that's a really cool, an element to it.
Yeah, again, I honestly believe that them doing this to their game is going to benefit them. I mean, I don't really know many games that when you go ahead and make a character, you can earn more cosmetics even after you make your character, so that way maybe you can go back and you might be able to monetize it in effect in the form of, okay, you can create your character. Once you make it, it's permanent, but then monetize character changes where you could have like a slip, sort of like a lot of games do, where you can change your character up and then end up being able to go back, maybe even have to pay money to change up your character for all the stuff you unlocked, maybe give you a free one after so long as an event reward. There's many different concepts and things that you can definitely do for this, so I believe this is good.
That we want to incorporate 100%.
Yeah, so what you're asking for, we got you, homie.
Boom.
Boom, done. All right, next up, of course, we have our reminder for a monthly cosmetic swap over. The Road to Desolation is scheduled for to swap over on May 11th, 2022 at 11 a.m. Pacific. So if you'd like those, snag them while they're hot because we're going to have some new ones coming your way. And of course, this month we had a little bit of a different feedback. It wasn't a part of our dev updates per se, but let me go back over there. We had some hairstyle feedback that we requested from you all. And in regards to that, I think they'll be popping some in there, but we basically were asking you guys to kind of provide to us some of the hairstyles and hair types that you like. We heard a lot of your feedback in regards to that. We actually compiled all the feedback about all of the character customization, and we went back and talked to the design team about it. Steven was there as well, and it seems like most of the things you guys want, we are going to be implementing. Obviously, when it came to the character creator, we weren't completely done showcasing all of the hairstyles that we'll have. We'll have a whole slew of them, different textures, different hair types and styles. But in the interim, because it was such a hot topic, we created a new thread where we hope you all will share images of hairstyles that you'd like to see, so that we can, share those with our team and hopefully incorporate them as much as we possibly can in our development phases.
Yeah, and it's important to note, we've said this many.
What's funny about that is they actually had one of the characters look like one of the big streamers, and I was surprised of how identical they made that character look to that big streamer. Granted, that might be something that is used to sort of sell the game, I guess. So we'll definitely see how it pans out.
Times you guys are aware of this, like art is a continuing work in progress, and the character creator, we wanted to show you guys kind of the level of capabilities at an early stage, which means many of those assets, many of the ideas that you guys shared were already planned, and kind of part of the character creator roadmap. So look forward to in the future getting more updates on those features as they get implemented.
For sure. And we will be compiling that. So make sure that you head on over to our forums, check out the discussion feedback thread requesting hairstyles for the character creator over there and toss us their feedback. I believe I saw Vagnar and Roshan posting it in chat. Click on it, leave us some images of what you'd like to see. And I think with that, that wraps up our reminders. Short and sweet today. Next up, we have our studio update, which I will toss over to Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely. So the studio is growing, actually. Since the start of this year, we have hired
A lot.
23 additional people to the team.
Okay, that's big news. 23 additional people to the team. That's huge. That is a lot of people. That is people that have to direct the art, people that animate, people that design, people that code, and there's only like 8 different positions you can really be. So if there's 20 something people, that's at least 3 person per position. And in my eyes, they need more of everything when it comes to developing a video game. You can have a big enough team, because if you have too big of a team, then it's hard for everyone to collaborate and put all their ideas in one sort of one area. So yeah, we'll definitely see how that looks.
Which is really cool because we are getting an incredible amount of talented individuals. But aside from the talent, individuals who are just MMORPG fans and players, and
Wow.
they have a passion for this genre and for the project, and they were following along. And it's really nice to be in a position from a studio perspective where your project is known and it's desired amongst the industry to participate with it, and
A
you
lot of
have
people
these
looking for this.
natural applications and interests that are coming every day that our HR team and is doing really great hard work. Stacy and Cameron Midori and John helping to onboard and
See him stumbling like that makes me feel better.
facilitate these applicants. So very excited for that. The teams are growing. I love seeing the teams growing. I go out to lunch with the teams and meet these new faces, and I love seeing just the passion in the eyes of people who are working on bringing to life what you guys want, what we want, and what is going to be the next great thing when it comes to MMOs. So the growth is doing really good. Internally, we also are very close to getting our graphics done and our logos and signs and everything put up, and the studio set dressed to
Look at
the
all that
point where
fan
we're
art
going to start
already.
recording some videos with the team and give you guys some insight. I know we've done those in the past, and we've talked about how we're going to be doing them here in the future again, but I'm excited to get that stuff running again. It's going to be really cool, I think, for you guys to get a behind the scenes look. And I know Margaret's super excited
I
about that as
know.
well.
This is my whole team has just been chomping at the bits to do more things like that. So if you really enjoyed the Dev Diary series, we want to do more of those things, and also just bite-sized stuff on social, through like Instagram stories, Snapchat, maybe TikTok,
Absolutely.
things like that. So
Yes. And then on top of that, we actually completed our first milestone of the year last week, I believe it was the end or beginning of last week. Can't quite discuss everything that was there because not all of it is ready yet, but a lot of great things internally from a development standpoint that is going very well and is very exciting, which will be trickling out over, I know I'm teasing this, but it'll be trickling out over, the next few months
yeah.
to see that kind of stuff. So all in all, things are going really good on the studio front.
Yeah, it's been very, very exciting for me too, because I've gotten to experience what it was like when we're all kind of like in a little garage studio where we could like open up the garage door and it was like a small
Oh my
group,
gosh,
and now it's
yes.
like this massive building that we're in.
I honestly think they only started with a few people, and now they just hired 20. I think it was 23 or 26, something like that, people this year alone. That's not including the other people that they hired in the previous years. This is great news, guys.
And I don't get to see
You're
everybody
looking.
every day.
Last thing, it's because they have probably procured enough money to where they can actually pay these people to work. That means there's people supporting the project. There's people that are looking forward to this game.
so weird.
Right, and you might see some faces and you're like, who's that person? And you're like,
Yeah.
that's a weird experience.
I am fortunate in the company that I get to see all of the new hires as they come in because we're
Yes.
like flagging their accounts and things like that. So I do get to see faces, kind of like little
Yeah.
pictures of them, but sometimes they don't match necessarily what they look like, in person. Especially people who use like Goku as their image or something. But it has been pretty cool seeing all the new
Yeah,
folks.
it is
I'm
cool.
I'm excited, and like when we see potlucks and it's just like this massive amount of people in the cafeteria, it just
Oh
excites
yeah.
me. Yeah.
It is always fun to see that for sure. And last potluck, you guys had a little Ren
Yeah,
Fair
we did a
dress up.
Ren
That was
fair.
cool.
Yeah. We posted some photos of folks who wanted to be in photos. So if you want to check that out, it's on our LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of those places. Some people brought their A game with costumes. I just threw on something quick. But let's move on to the design and engineering update then. Let's first preface, everything that we talk about is subject to change potentially through development as we test things. So just keep that in mind as we talk about things here. But first, let's talk about what have they been doing generally on the design and engineering side. Maybe
There's
start with engineering and then go into
sure.
design so we can tie it into today's topic.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff that's been worked on over the last month. Engineering's really been focusing a lot on let's see, we have the node layout tool that's been getting some adjustments that Roy's been working on, and the node team on the design side has been working on, especially with environment. It's kind of like changing the way that the node layouts work. To facilitate some of the additional service buildings that are going to be incorporated in Alpha 2. We want to kind of create a layout tool that allows even, each of the nodes to kind of be represented in a unique way. We've talked about that in the past, but more importantly, also that we maintain consistency on certain building locations, especially player housing, and specific building service building types as we progress into stages 4, 5, and 6 of the node's progression.
What this reminds me of is Black Desert with the nodes. That's what it reminds me of. Player housing, nodes probably gonna have a tax system, even where like if a certain guild owns something, you know what I mean. We'll see how that also reacts with the community. I did like that from Black Desert. That was the fun part. The only thing I did not like about Black Desert was the fact that you could like ruin your weapon if you just failed an upgrade, and then it require you the whole week to upgrade it again, and even that wasn't guaranteed. So all right.
So that's something that's been getting a little bit of a redesign. In addition, you guys probably noticed in Alpha 1 how many of the nodes were relatively flat. There was not a lot of topography when it came to kind of sections or districts of the city that that's possible with the node layout. So now that we've had kind of our approach for Alpha 2 with the nodes that we've manually been constructing from a layout perspective that Chris Justo and Bucky and Jason Neal have been kind of participating and fleshing out. The engineering team has been providing for that node layout tool the type of additional requirements that are requested. Also on the AI systems, engineering's been working closely with Chong and the design team on kind of the requirements that the Alpha 2 creatures need to have from a behavior tree perspective, the ability to kind of weigh certain actions and or response arcs that exist within that behavior tree. How do we how do we value those scores? How do we make those types of actions live in parallel with one another? Right? If I'm trying to cast an ability as a monster, but I'm also trying to move to a particular waypoint as a result of some other occurrence on the player's behalf, I need to be able to calculate that in the AI's brain at the same time with one another, right? So a lot of engineering work has been led by Russell Peltz on changing up the AI systems from Alpha 1 to accommodate all of the additional behaviors that we want to see out of the creatures, even that the dynamic type of behaviors, right? So there's a significant amount of work that's been done on that front. Combat has.
I just want to say something right there. So what I get out of that is making the AI more intellectual, making it be able to make its own decisions, making it being able to know when to attack the player, know when not to, and then there's certain evolution of AI. Like you're gonna have your grunts, which might not be so smart. They might not know when they should do this or when they should do that because they're supposed to be dumbed down. Then you're gonna have the more smarter AI, the AIs where say you have like Doctor Evil as a villain, you know what I mean, that comes in and you're fighting him. Not saying that that's what's going to happen, but then you would have to understand that that character that you're fighting would be a lot more difficult to fight because they would be able to maybe interrupt your spell, maybe move out of it, certain stuff like that, and the way that AI reacts, that's the big thing that we're looking for here. And this is great news for them being able to talk about it because there's a lot of MMORPGs that don't even talk about that shit. They're like they use the same old AI, all right? They just care about the animations. If you attack it, it runs, or if you attack it, it aggroes. That's it. You know what I mean? No in between, no thought process. So
has been a huge endeavor over the last actually several months. And through a lot of the prototyping that the design team and the engineering team and our VFX team and our animation team have been working
you see how many teams that man just said? That's good.
on.
Character art team.
Yeah,
It's like all of them together.
for sure, 100%. Character art, not so much in the combat prototyping, because the models are kind of staying consistent there. But for example, with the assassin class, with our dagger weapons, we didn't previously have that in Alpha 1. So those are entirely new animation sets that are required to have those dual wielded kind of daggers. And it's something you guys might be seeing soon in the future. But that prototyping phase over the last several months has really been to kind of flesh out the major revamp that we've been working on for combat, because part of the biggest amount of feedback that we got from Alpha 1 was with regards to combat, and we have a lot of ideas on the things that we wanted to try. And the best way to kind of flesh those ideas out obviously is through prototyping. And in development, prototyping is just kind of combination of rapid iteration, of standing up these ideas without full-fledged kind of code support, doing so in a blueprint setting or in a test level, where you can really kind of throw a lot of different things at the wall, and you can rapidly iterate on how that stuff feels, get feedback from the team, feedback from focus groups, and then you can take the direction that is getting the kind of best bang for the feeling buck, so to speak. So it's been great to kind of see that. But in addition, that phase.
I just hope they don't bang for the buck our wallets. I would love it if this game is fully free to play, where even if it requires a second alt, for you to progress, I'm fine with that. But when you have to make like 10 alts to keep up with anyone, and then you literally have to spend 12 to 16 hours to keep up with somebody that paid a ridiculous amount, I just don't believe that is fair. I mean, it's good, maybe implement more cosmetic changes, or maybe more different varieties of pets, or maybe make buildings that have cosmetics. Like say if you have your own building and you're able to skin it, you know what I mean, that would be sick. Whales could spend money on that. Same thing with Lost Ark and wallpapers. People spent $50 for their premium pass and Lost Ark just for a wallpaper, because you can buy the costume outright with blue crystals, or you can buy it on the auction house. So there's other ways to implement monetization. Sorry guys, I'm so bad with that. I keep on trying to add an I. Monetization for this game. You don't need to sit here and just try to wallet pick everybody.
Allows for us to really expand upon the versatility of what our ability system can do, and that's been spearheaded by Keenan and Adam with regard.
And can I just say real quick, do you see how much the community cares about this game? They've went over like 100 different arts, like knits, people knitting stuff, people um my mod does the stuff right here. If you see, it's called diamond art. It looks like there was some of that made, as depictions of some of the animals and creatures and fauna in here. I think it's so cool that the community really cares.
on the code side with regards to what design has access to do for all the ability systems, right? And not just the ability systems, but also like your combat weapon montages and your basic attacks. So there's been a lot of work on that front. It's not quite ready to show. I know so many people are waiting to see combat updates.
It's the top thing we get
It is
asked
100%,
time.
but we have to be very careful when we present what's been worked on, that it has to be at a particular state that's presentable, right?
And I 100% get that. I would not post it because people will eat it apart. They will pick it apart. They will, digest it, shit it right back out. It's literally that bad. As soon as you show something, people think that's the final product, and that's their opinion on it immediately. So I would 100% wait. I'm waiting on Combat 2. That sounds awesome. The thing is what I'm looking for is something that's not so tab targeting. It's okay to tab and be focused on someone, but like have no maneuverable, skills or anything like that where, you can actually move and cast, or maybe you cast a spell and you slide, a few feet because you used to maybe cast a fireball, slide back a few feet because it's such a powerful spell. Stuff like that makes the combat feel more fluid.
Obviously you guys know this, you're our core audience, you're tuning in here and you're watching our live streams, but the moment we release an update with regards to combat, that spreads like wildfire, right? That's what we call essentially a marketing beat. This is something that is out of our control. It's content creators pick it up, they're going to show it to very unengaged audiences, and we want to make sure that the presentation is at a point where when it grabs those legs that we don't have control over from a marketing perspective, that it'll stand by itself. It won't need our verbal support and kind of talking about it. It'll be a visual component that is visceral and looks good and has people's support. So
we want to set the right precedent, because if people look at something and it's a prototype and it's in really early phases, they might make comments like, "Oh, this isn't very good combat."
Yeah,
and it's like,
absolutely.
well, we know that it's a prototype, so that's why we have to make sure that it's in a solid enough state.
The delicate blend between a transparent development process, but also understanding that majority of your player audience will not grasp or will not take into context what a work in progress looks like. So certain things we have to polish to the point where they're presentable, where they can be understood again in its own context without my verbal support or Margaret's verbal support, right?
I think a great example of that is the character creator.
Yeah.
Right? We went through many phases prior to that of the character creator, and we would not have wanted to share those with you all. Not because we don't want to share the development process, but because there will be people who take that and look at it and go, this isn't, why would I want to play that? Right?
Yeah.
What he means by the verbal aspect of it is he basically means that he will have to explain what it's going to be. So he would have to, like, he'd show it. It wouldn't be so great per se because it's in an alpha state. And then he is going to basically, have to pick it apart for everybody. Okay, well, this is going to be added. Don't be worried, and that's something that they probably don't want to have to do. They want to be able to show it and people actually be happy about it rather than him having to describe what they're going to do.
The character creator is a prime example of what good looks like when it comes to a feature that can stand on its own, right? That's something that can be shared and people understand that. So anyways, I don't want to go off on the combat too much.
Yeah.
But essentially, the combat, the ability systems, the tool support there has progressed a significant amount. And by the way, as prototyping lends to those additional features within the combat tools, it actually is an exponential speed modifier, right? When those additional things come online, we can actually more rapidly prototype and more rapidly iterate as well, which feeds back into kind of the process of getting good combat, right? Of getting something that feels good. So there's been a lot of work on that front. Buoyancy and vehicle physics. There's been a lot of work done from Michael Brady and from Mikhail on mount controls, on flight and gliding mechanics that'll be present in Alpha 2, the buoyancy of ships, the physics behind vehicle movement for siege weapons. We had some representation of that, of course, in Alpha 1. But since Alpha 1, it was added to the schedule, of course, for us to go back to refine those things. They're works in progress. We have additional passes that are done on them, additional
Sieges, ships, housing, buoyancies. Honestly, it sounds like an open, giant ass open world like Black Desert. It really does. The thing is, I have nothing really against Black Desert when it comes to sort of how the camera is, how the world is. It's nice to be able to see depth rather than no offense like Lost Ark where you're just looking down the entire time. It feels more immersive. Feels like there's more of a world when you can look up and see a sky. You know what I mean? Instead of looking down the entire time and only being able to see the floor. So yeah, this is definitely a positive, guys.
support that's presented for those things, and I'm happy to say that they're looking quite good, and you may see some updates on those in the near future. Networking has been a big, of course, endeavor on the engineering side. There's been a lot of work on that front by Zach and by Hunter and by Ben, and
here's another thing: he knows all these people by their first name. That's another good sign. That means they're they're tightly knit. So that's all I want to say.
that actually is pretty exciting, but of course I can't talk too much about that stuff.
Yeah.
The platform, the web teams, our back end services. Mark and his team have been doing an incredible job from an engineering perspective on supporting pretty much everything that the gameplay engineers are needing from them. So
And
it's
also
exciting to
my
see.
team. I
Yes,
appreciate them greatly. I
absolutely.
work with
Yes.
that team a lot, so
Yeah, absolutely.
good peeps.
Itemization and crafting.
It's good to see the community marketing lead actually working with people for the game because that means it's not like the CMs that are in Lost Ark where they're completely clueless. Granted, like this last update, they did a great job, but previous updates they led people on and sort of shifted their notion of what they really mean by okay, we're releasing this at this time and stuff like that. So it's good that she's actually working with the team
Ooh,
face to
There's a
face.
lot of
hefty.
there's actually a lot of changes that we have not yet discussed on the crafting front. So you guys have had a pretty rudimentary insight into what crafting is in Ashes of Creation. And in Alpha 1, we just had the basic core loops, right? Which is like I collect a thing,
I
I
hit a thing,
combine
I
a
get a
thing,
thing. I put some
and I
inventory.
get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Collect, combine, get. And that is a pretty simplistic approach that we wanted to just have present from, again, a gameplay loop that was in Alpha 1. But Alpha 2 is meant to really represent a few of these professions in their true form from gathering, processing, and a crafting's perspective. Now, there's some additional gameplay layers that are intended to be tested as part of Alpha 2 as it relates to actually crafting, crafting something or processing something. There additionally is a concept called surveying, which is a component of gathering that makes things a little bit different than what players have been accustomed to in most MMOs in the past. And just to give you a little bit of idea behind kind of those gameplay layers that we're thinking about, we've talked about ideas like land management, and as you draw resources from your surrounding area, what type of effect does that have on the land? And then also, how effectively can you draw those resources without having such a deleterious effect on the land, right? Which might impact future resource gathering for some period of time. And it makes relevant.
Now, I do not know how that's going to work. That would sort of suck that you have all these people gathering in like the most, I guess, mineral friendly place where everyone can mine the best resources, you know what I mean? And then eventually it gets depleted and then they have to go find elsewhere. I mean, I could see where that'd be cool. It'd be sort of weird for the landmass to change. I guess that would also be a little cool too, you know what I mean? But it's like, how much, you know, how much resource can be gathered by the time all of it gets gathered and people have to disperse to other areas and find other spots can be a good thing, but I can also see some downsides to it. Like, what are you going to do once that runs out? Like, you're going to go to a different part of the world that might have resources that are completely different, or maybe there's none of that resource left. I mean, granted, they could make a bunch of mountainous areas that harbor rock, but we'll definitely see how this one plays out. I like I like the idea. I like the concept of it. If it's executed well, then it can impact the game in a good way. So also with the crafting thing, it's not just like he was explaining. It's not just take two rocks, smash together, get a better rock. It's not, oh, take a rock and a piece of wood, smash together, and now you got an axe. Okay, or it's more like I hope they make it like this. But the way I was getting it from him was that you basically you mine that ore. All right, instead of like you survey the land, you realize, okay, this has this much resources, you mine whatever you can, you take those resources, you process them down into bars, sort of like Black Desert a little bit, then you take that stuff and maybe forge it into a weapon, which maybe you have to sharpen it, you know what I mean, or something like that. Like there's a little mini game that you have to click off to sharpen it, and the better you click it off, like the more sharp it gets. Stuff like that to make crafting even more immersive would be good for the game.
The movement of these players who are collecting these goods from the environment, that they actually cannot always just do so in one particular area as the land management begins to degrade. So it actually encourages movement across the world to discover new areas that might not be as
That's what I was
perturbed
saying. Yeah.
as the ones you're coming from. It's a very interesting idea. It's something that we're going to be prototyping in Alpha 2 and getting feedback on and testing. Corey and Mike Hahn have been leading endeavors on the design side for those types of ideas, which are really fun, and we're going to talk about at some point in the future as well. Outside of that, we've also had a considerable amount of work that has been coming out of the design side from Chris Justo's Node Pod with Bucky and Jason and a few of our other designers on service buildings and the node superpowers and relics and the reliquary system that's going to be present in Alpha 2, the types of benefits that are conferred there, the gameplay between capturing those relics and stealing them or sabotaging their return to the nodes. What type of passive benefits do they grant the citizens? What types of active benefits are being conferred upon vassal states, the upgrade paths that are going to be present within the service buildings, working with environment to.
Now that is something that's different, and that gives me a good idea. So what happens if like two guilds like own a node side by side, or it doesn't matter. Like regardless, like two guilds own nodes differently. Okay, we'll say guild number one gets pissed off at guild number two. All right, sees that they're gathering some sort of resources off their plane or whatever, and they go and they gather bomb the other guild's resources. All right. Now their resources that they have in their stronghold or whatever, or their node is now depleted. All right, so there is some negative side effects that I can already see. But granted, this is all speculative, so we'll definitely continue.
Kind of mask out sections of a building until the upgrade comes online and a new room opens up or a new wing or a new story. It's really interesting to kind of see the specialization paths that are possible on an individual node basis that makes that particular node a waypoint for certain types of players, right? And how it drives traffic from the player base to those nodes that increases things like the taxable revenue that's possible. And then that, of course, bleeds into the types of additional buildings or defensive mechanics or initiatives and events that can be done. Incorporating things like node policies from almost a civic standpoint that grant certain types of actions that the node government can take, whether it be diplomatic actions like potentially conflicts with other nodes and the wars that happen, what type of rep you need to have with those other nodes nodes from a diplomatic perspective can be influenced by these policies. There's a lot of stuff that's been worked on from the node team that's being supported by our engineering team with regards to this feature development in preparation for Alpha 2. So as an engineering design kind of overview, I'm sorry if I'm super long-winded.
No, it's great.
There's just so much stuff.
The chat's like, my brain is melting because it's just so much stuff. And Stephen will not be able to go through everything. There's even more stuff. We'd be here all day.
There's a lot. Sometimes I feel like my mind is on the precipice of just breaking in half when there's just what there is to cover on a daily basis from my schedule. But there is so much to be excited about that this team is working on, and not only that they're working on, but that they are creating in such a way that is unlike any experience that I've had as a gamer and as an MMO player. And I'm just so incredibly excited. I guess I'm fresh off the heels of our internal live stream, our town hall. So if I seem overly excited, it's because, you know, watching the presentation at the end of our first, 2022 milestone, has made me excited. So I apologize. I apologize to you and to those out there who do not have this game in their hands yet. If I am hyping this, I don't want to be like, I'm not hyping this. I'm just very excited myself, and I want to convey the excitement to you guys. But I also want to temper that there's still a lot of development.
We have a lot of work.
In development, there's a lot of work, and last this, I'm just very excited myself, and I want to convey the excitement to you guys.
I thought that was
but
me,
I also want to temper that there's still a lot
of development. We have a lot of work.
In development, there's a lot of work, and last stream, we showed a very big system, the character creator, and we showed. Oh, are we dying? Are we losing?
Oh yeah, the internet just crashed.
Uh-oh. Wait.
Oh, it's back.
Wait a minute. Are we back? Uh-oh.
See if the stream.
Well, you could tell they're in the same building because the internet crashed for both. That's another good sign.
How are we doing? Stand by.
Seems like we're still up, so.
All right.
We'll wait for it to. Sorry about that.
Yes.
Seems like the internet took a hiccup.
Okay, I think we're back. But anyways, okay. I just wanted to say another thing is that last month we showed off the character creator, right? And that's obviously was a very exciting thing for everyone to see. It gives you a level of quality for what we're hoping to achieve with all of our systems in the game in general, and you guys get to see that stuff. And but that we are actively in development, and we need to be conscientious of how we present the systems during our development. And what that means is sometimes we're not going to have streams that are as exciting, as visually appealing as a character creator. So I just want to make sure we temper expectations that we're going to show you guys stuff. We're going to show you stuff strategically that's smart and that can be shown by other content creators and stuff, but just be patient for that. I know you guys have been patient, and we appreciate that. We love the patience that our community has, but understand that patience will yield a very good product. So
all right, well, let's transition into talking a little bit about our event system and how that works, if you don't mind transitioning to that.
Yeah,
we have a little video that we'll play.
I like event systems.
Just some B-roll video. Whilst we talk about this.
Somebody said that. Margaret, someone said that you cut the stream to stop me from leaking.
I didn't. I think it was Twitch because I didn't touch anything. We actually didn't stop the stream. It was like Twitch hiccuped, and then we're back now. So.
Yeah, sure.
I actually have mute power. I can just mute Steven.
I know.
I
Now
own
don't
the
mute me.
power.
No bully. No bully.
I know I wouldn't ever.
So
As a joke, maybe, but
what we wanted to talk about on today's stream was a little bit more systems driven. Chatting kind of about how content gets introduced into the world.
Is this some sort of goblin event? They're talking about events. Hey, I love events. I don't care what it is.
And things like these little goblins that you see. By the
yeah.
way, I love these little goblins.
Yeah, they're cool. I
I
the
also
shaman.
yeah, the shaman's cool, but what I love about the goblins is they're really a unique monster race from the sense that they have social organization to themselves, right? And a lot of monsters kind of share that aspect, that they have these kind of social organizations where you can develop goblin tactics, and you can have some goblin identities, and you can have variants in those types of the types of goblins that you can even experience. But anyways,
that sort of follow along the lines of what I was saying earlier. Like the intellectual part of every AI can be different, like Mastermind, and you got the goblins, and they're more of like a group oriented type of thing, Then you got the giant ogres who don't really maybe like to be in packs because there's not enough food in the area to even, have ogres, be in a pack, So that right there is awesome. Is awesome. I hope they keep with that mentality.
So when we're talking about events, we've talked about this in the past a little bit. Some of you guys know the event system, but really what the events represent is a way for us to attempt and introduce content in a more fluid, in a more natural, in a more kind of progression-based way that the world is reacting to player activity. And what we mean by player activity is in the event system, we have certain predicates, and these predicates act as requirements that must be satisfied before a particular story arc or a particular event can kick off, right? And these events are very, very wide ranging in what they can be, right? This could be a plague that's sweeping the lands. It could be a natural disaster that is a forest fire or a volcanic eruption. It could be a response from a particular NPC faction or a monster faction, like here you see the goblins kind of assaulting a town. But what's interesting about these events, and something that I think correlates to kind of how I run D&D campaigns as well, is that there's always a clock ticking in the world, right? There's always something that's happening in the background, regardless of what player decisions are made sometimes, right? These things can continue to develop. And if you don't pay attention to them, or if you don't respond to them, if you do not stop them from advancing in stages, right? These things will have effects on your day-to-day activities. They will create obstacles. They will potentially destroy buildings. They will.
So what they're saying is, all right, is if you end up having like a node by a goblin encampment, okay, and those goblins, all right, just get left alone. Say everyone gets high level, and you don't want to deal with these damn goblins no more, all right. Then they start getting, a bigger community. They start wanting to, have their own like hive mind, and they go and they just start attacking shit. That's pretty cool. I like that idea. That way it makes people sort of maybe they have an event that happens where it's like Goblin Horde, or something. It starts attacking something, and once you cleanse the horde, maybe it gives you some XP even for high levels because you had to clear this low level horde, or maybe they don't give you XP. Maybe they give you material. All right, maybe some more rare goblin material that you might actually need for a high level weapon. Like what happens if to make that high level weapon you could put like I don't know a goblin cloth at the bottom of it, ends up giving it some sort of like elemental damage or something like that. Some nature damage or stuff like that. I can definitely see where they're coming from and where they're going with this, and I like it so far. This is all great news, guys. All great news. This is why I particularly pitched this product and I started working on this is one of my first live streams where I am looking at my desktop and not Lost Ark or a certain game. And this is why I chose this product, because this is going to be a game that a lot of people are looking forward to.
Create havoc within the game player world that will force you to respond. And if you do not, you will suffer the consequences. So let's see. Did you give me? Let me see
Yeah,
here
I
if I
have
have
little
these.
talking points for you here.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Where?
Steven's using the run of show, you guys. It's exciting.
I know. I'm so sorry.
I'm just
I'm
messing.
like, where is my run of show? Okay, I think I have it here. Okay, perfect. So one of the things that we kind of consider behind the event applications are like where these events live. So obviously one of the most common probably events that you guys have experienced in other MMORPGs are calendar events. Calendar events can be server-wide events that give us unique content based on the duration of either some type of real world holiday or in-game holiday or beat. Now that's not to say that these are going to be campy or that they're going to be out of immersion, so to speak. We have a lot of ideas on how certain real world holidays can be contextualized within the game world and seem fitting, right?
We actually asked you all for your feedback in regards to events and holidays and if you'd like to see those. And looking at the feedback from that, it seems like you guys want a mix. You want a mix of in-game holidays and seasonal events and things like that that are pertinent to the culture of the world and different from real life. And then you also want some that coincide with real life, but have their own culture and purpose in the game. And I think we can definitely incorporate all of that feedback.
I guess a good example that I come up with this is like, I know I mentioned this game a lot, but these are like the two main games that are completely different, especially when it comes to camera aspect and the way they handle things, and that's Lost Ark and Black Desert. But I feel like Black Desert does another good job for this when it comes to Christmas time. They put snow down for a few months, and everyone has to play the game around snow. Now, it would be cool if Black Desert made it to where horses could slip in the snow and shit like that. Stuff that makes sense, ice roads. But it's a lot to do. It's a lot to deal with. Hopefully, they keep expanding their team and they can get more people to work on this, because it sounds like it's pretty ambitious. So we'll definitely see where they take it. I really don't think the development of this game is going to be finished until like 2025. But this might be the game that we're all sitting here waiting for and not minding to wait for. So
feedback for sure.
Yeah, and part of the great thing that the content team, the narrative team, that's Scott and Chris and Amy and Win and Tony, part of the things that they're working on is creating a lot of cultural identity for these character races, and how we can bring about kind of these calendar events from the perspective of each individual race. That's something that I think is going to be really helping identify or giving identity to each of the character races. The other thing I want to say is that Amy and Clayton have been working very hard on this event system. So I want to give them super kudos, big props to Amy Watanabe and Clayton Stamper. Next thing.
I mean, so here's a different game, Deck Around, 2 Moons. They had an event where you would have to travel across the entire map, and it randomly drops, but you would have Santa Claus in the air, and he would drop a present randomly on the map, and you'd have to go up to it and either be A, the one to loot it, or B, the one to break it. So I can also see, that as an event or something like, of that nature.
Scott, and I believe Chris.
Scott Bacara, Chris Holtorf, absolutely, yeah. and recently Tony as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So no to
I'm like, you gotta list all the names.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So the next thing, and this is kind of indicative of the little video that you see here, the little loop that we're playing, is node attacks. Some of the events that spawn have consequences that lead to node attacks, right? And enemies have a particular type of hate list
What was I saying? I'm telling you guys.
on certain buildings that a node may have access to when they attack during an event. And that hate list might relate to or that building choice might relate to something that is indicative of the storyline for that particular event, or it could be something that is more pivotal to the defense of the city. If the city doesn't respond to these types of things, that might weaken them for potential player attacks afterwards, right? And that's something that's very important as well. Monster coin events. We've talked about this in the past. Monster coins are obviously items that allow players to become monsters for some period of time. Events allow players to kind of opt in from the monster's perspective and take out their rage on other players or different factions. But with
Monster points, guys. That's the first time I heard about that. They said that you get to have monster points to be able to be the monster. So what? Are you going to take control of a goblin? Are you going to take control of an ogre and wreak havoc all over, the entire node? That is, I like that idea. That's a good concept. That's a good concept. Then what happens is after, let's say you're at war with a guild, you become an ogre, you try to wreck a building, maybe you get a chance to do it, maybe it lowers some sort of defense, maybe they have towers, able to take down a couple of towers because there are sieges, because you are, use monster points, you saved them all up to be able to maybe be a dragon, and burn through half the village, and then your entire squadron comes in and just starts laying waste to everything. So I like that. That's really cool.
Without having to be their own player character at that time. I think that breaks up the monotony of what playing your character class might always represent on a day-to-day basis, and give you a little bit of fun. Little bit of a fun part time away from that. The other thing is our kind of POI events. So POI events typically tell stories of the particular POI, right? Like, why does this POI exist? Why are there monsters here? This point of interest that might be some tower, or might be some dungeon. How does that population interact with the rest of the world outside of just its point of interest, right? And those things could be precursors for node attacks themselves. It could address the story of nearby threats as antagonists to civilization in general. Enemies can only really grow stronger as the node grows, becoming outposts essentially for exiled or rivals of the existing order. The other thing about node conflict NPCs is that they might have influential inhabitants of the world, right? You might have, a dude who's the leader of the speakeasies, and they, have information to give you. And if you don't, interact with them, they might give you that information to your enemies, and that might spawn off some other event. So these are also closely integrated with storylines and story arcs in general. The other thing you could have.
I guess the only part I am worried about is having too many moving parts. If you have too many moving parts, how is that going to correlate to the coding, to the end game, to a bunch of things, because once you start mixing and trying to it just becomes a mess. So that's one thing that does worry me, is it too much, but maybe this day and age this is what's needed to sort of make MMORPGs greater than what they are now, instead of just the go to this, press G, go to this, click, go to this, and just pick this up. You need 5 of these, you go pick up 5 of them. You need to mash 2 of these together to get 1 of these. So maybe this will introduce some dynamic, and that is very needed as like a breath of fresh air for MMORPGs.
Certain type of PvP objectives and PvP driven events. The event system is used to create PvP situations in the open world as almost battlegrounds, right? Open world battlegrounds. And I've talked about this in the past as well. But usually
they're saying there's going to be PK systems, as in you can go and just fight somebody in the open. I prefer that. I do. As long as there's no whales in the game that's able to completely kick your ass, I 100% prefer to have that. Make everything cost money that's cosmetic and just, baseless to stats, and people will spend money on it. League of Legends has a good model for that. You don't spend money to be better at League of Legends. You spend money to get a better skin. That's all it is. And they come out with so many damn skins, and if people like 10 different skins and they don't have enough money for it, regardless, they're spending the max amount of money they can spend already. So yeah, that's just how I feel about it.
definition of what a battleground is non-traditional. It's not typically something that is defined in the same way in other MMORPGs, but I kind of view them as these small skirmishes that might lead up to a siege or to a war, and they might have capture points during node and castle fights, and these PvP objectives.
Yeah, there's not going to be any wars if people don't get pissed off. That's just unfortunately how it is. You're going to have a guild that gets mad. You're going to have, maybe the guild lead is farming by himself in an area, all right, and say he's the strongest in his guild, and yet two people who are, close to his strength but not exactly as strong as him come gang up on him and kill him, and now there's a war between two guilds. Stuff like that happens. That brings the social aspect to this game. That makes it fun, in my opinion. That gives people reason to do maniacal things, to do good things. You know what I mean? Because there's also a different side of it. You're also going to have people that try to be friends with other guilds and maintain alliances. So
maybe more relevant for smaller groups than for giant raids. And you might have concurrently running objectives during a particular event where you have to dispatch groups simultaneously to go address these objectives in order to complete one particular type of event or one particular type of success condition. So that is another element of our PvP objectives and how they work in the event systems as well. One important thing to note about events in general is notifications are sent to the players, right? Players can kind of opt into these events in a similar way that you would into a quest, right? You're going to be presented with a, would you like to participate? But they might not always be that way. You might hear trees falling in the forest, and that may be an audio cue to tell you something's happening over there. It's out of the ordinary. This is not normally an audio cue that I hear in this area, and I'm going to go investigate that thing. So it might not.
Like, I know I bring up ogres a lot, but like, could you imagine this giant one-eyed, like, or maybe a cyclops, big motherfucker just all of a sudden starts knocking down trees, dude. And you're in some like forest area that you're used to dealing with the goblins, and then all of a sudden, like, you just see them like slaughtering a bunch of goblins, knocking over trees. And you're like, whoa, this is an event. We got to kill this big thing.
Not just be always that kind of UI window represented with a participate or not, but I'm going to go investigate. And in that sense, it could be stage driven. So you might have the more local stage where it is just the visual or audio cues and you get to go participate in that stage. And then when it advances, or if you don't answer the problem in time, then it starts to expand regionally. And then it might send out particular notifications to either citizens of the node from which it falls under its purview, or even broader than that, right? It could be global driven events. And then it could have things that are visual cues that are really big, like a giant blizzard that's affecting the zone because the event hasn't been addressed. And that can affect the crop rotations, or it can affect passages and roads and how caravans move. There's a
or like, let's just say it's a forested area, right? And then all of a sudden, like, the event, no one really understands, like, whoa, hold on, this area that who was originally forested, it now has a bunch of snow on it. And come to find out, there's like, 10 wizards on the perimeter that is casting a blizzard spell to make that entire zone frozen. Now that would be awesome.
There's a lot that the predicate system informs to the event system, and then the event system reacts to those types of predicates, right? There's also event levels. The level of a particular event content is scaled essentially with the level of the content that triggers it. So for example, if the event takes place in a zone that has a base population of, let's say, average level 25, then one of the trigger conditions might be that 10 monsters of level 25 have been killed recently in that zone, and the level 25 event will now spawn additional content designed for level 25 players. So these events aren't always going to be end game. They're going to be obviously appropriate based on the content in which the predicate system is informing, but they also could be something completely top level that is introduced at a lower level area and brings population traffic of the players back to those types of things.
That's actually what I was saying earlier. When you have like, and like a bunch of, AIs that are fighting that are only like level 10, and all of a sudden like a level 40 comes out and starts demolishing shit. That way, you might need some help from someone that's higher level to come and help you guys out, and that way maybe you can call it a guild mate, or maybe it gives people an incentive to be higher level and come down to these lower areas, like he was saying, to drive traffic through.
There's one other important thing is that events are driven by what we call a state machine, right? And there are essentially 5 types of states that exist for events. There's the in progress state, there's the active state, inactive, on cooldown, or disabled. And that is essentially a way that we inform what types of elements, what stage of activity things are coming online based on what event state is currently active at the moment. We talked a little bit about kind of triggers. We have world conditions like node levels. We have seasons and climates and calendar, the service building activation, relics, and completed raids. All of these things can be part of what informs. I'm not going to.
I think the only time I ever heard of climate being an issue was Black Desert, whenever you go out into the desert, because then you can end up, it could be too cold, it could be too hot, you have to drink certain teas or certain milks or whatever the hell it is, Yeah, I like that idea. Maybe it's, freezing in a snowy area. Now you gotta, sort of like Breath of the Wild, where you have to eat the spicy chilies for you to maintain that area. I like that. It can get a hassle, though, trying to make sure you always can maintain it, though.
Going to go into what everything can be. I don't want to dish out, the nitty gritties of the system per se, but I'm just giving you an idea of what essentially allows events to become a thing. And then once those things are addressed or not addressed, certain cooldowns get triggered. Other conditions might trigger. It could form as a predicate for an additional event. There could be concurrent events. Uh-oh. Are we alive? I feel like we're dropping again.
Yeah, it looks like Twitch is hiccuping again.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we're back.
It's still in the red.
We're under attack.
And now it's green again.
And
but
we're back.
There's an ad playing, so give it 4 seconds.
Not like these.
Yay! Okay,
Yay!
we're good again. Yeah,
all right,
Twitch
let's
is
get F's in chat. F's in chat for connection.
Fortunately, it's not my internet, it's Twitch's side, so it's not cutting. It's not like making the video cut.
Yes, that's true. This is true. Okay. But anyway, so that's the general kind of new information that you may or may not have had in the past regarding events. I'm not sure if I missed anything.
I think it's going red again.
No.
I'm looking at the.
It says the video skips, but the audio is fine.
Interesting.
Well, no. Yeah. We want to obviously this type of system. Are we still alive?
It says we are.
What events can entail, so that the type of living, breathing, typical cliche terminology that's used for these types of systems.
Yeah.
But the goal is to really create something that feels immersive, that feels organic, that feels reactive to kind of player agency in the world. And the event system is one of those components. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of basically that risk versus reward versus consequence that we have talked about many times when it comes to Ashes of Creation. We want you, if you ignore those goblins, they're going to be plotting something. So you will have to, deal with what the repercussions of those are. But if you're, take care of it early on, maybe you're rewarded for that. So kind of keeping those things in mind. Also, I believe there will be a feedback thread about events that is going to be popped up now-ish. Vecnar, I know you're making it live. So if you can pop that live now, you're welcome to go over to our forums, leave us feedback in regards to your thoughts. We'll also have an article that will be going out, I believe, next week. And that will also kind of give you a rundown of this again if you're, if reading is a little bit easier for you than listening to us talk. But we'll also embed the video segment so you can, listen back and read at the same time along with us. I did have one question that was asked. Oh, go ahead.
I feel like it was the Goblin video. Like maybe we should have made them gremlins because they were messing. I'm just kidding.
I don't think
Yeah,
it
what
is.
was
I
the
think
question?
Twitch is having server issues right now.
Oh
Um,
no.
yeah, I looked at their thing. I think they were having server issues.
Got it.
In regards to this question that I saw in chat, I think it might be something that you could answer, and
Sure.
it's from Levioima. I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Levioima.
They wanted to know, you don't have to answer this today, but I would appreciate
Okay.
an answer on stream over the next couple of days. If you are going to link some holidays to out-of-game events, how will you resolve the time difference? Since it was said that in-game time will be faster than real-world time, like 4 times faster, I believe. And that's kind of a valid question to ask.
Oh,
And
I see. So
yeah.
will seasonal events in the real world align with the seasonal rotation in the game world? And I think in that sense, probably not. That's going to require a little bit of suspension of disbelief in understanding that. But it's also fair that in-game events do not need to be perfectly cyclical, like let's say seasonal events are in the real world. They could have a non-uniform cycle associated with them. But yeah, we also, there is something to be said for having that represented in the game, as long as it's immersive, as long as it's contextualized within the story and the world and the universe that we've created, and isn't a direct homage to Santa Claus in the real world, right? Like, just to use a prime example or something. But it can be a fun thing for players to experience, and it doesn't always have to.
I think we're red again.
Oh my god.
So I guess, maybe if the game has its own calendar, you would essentially, if it runs 4 times faster than the real world, you would basically go through the seasons faster. So it might not, if it's December in your area and it's snowing, it's, not most likely going to be December, or it could be December sometime in that month. Well, I guess if it's 4 times as fast, that means every month in real life would be 4 months into the game. So you would have to split up, you would have several years, or I would say about 4 years in game time that you would have in your real life. So that means you might experience winter 4 different times throughout the year. So yeah, I like that. We'll see how that pans out as well.
Twitch is
no.
not happy.
This is what I mean by too many moving parts.
I am recording locally right now, so for this end bit, just in case it like hardcore hiccups.
Twitch. Is it Twitch? What are they doing?
I don't know. I've been working on a lot of biome-oriented things in regards to Alpha 2.
Well, and so this is, so we're doing concepts. So this
I
is
like those
some
mushroom
concept
buildings.
that Joe has done with regards to fleshing
Pirate
out some of the
village homes.
architectures of the Pirate culture. So these are different types of home concepts for the Pirate. And you can see, obviously, the approach here is to be as seamless between the environment that these homes exist in and the architecture itself. So there's a lot of root structures that are incorporated. They're likely going to be using similar foliage actors that exist within the world as a means to integrate these types of structures with their surrounding environment. I really love how Joe kind of captures not just the element of the building here and the design of that particular building for the modelers to kind of utilize, but also to give context for how these buildings live within the environment by incorporating the ancillary natural features.
This
And
looks
this is
very
definitely
good.
work in progress. They're just kind of trying to solidify, how do these different layers live? How do they interact with the environment, as Steven said. So take note that these are not final. These are just concepts to kind of give us an understanding of where we're headed with them. The next thing that we're going to show here is the Ayla Ruins, which, this is obviously in-game screenshots. These are modular sets that in the beginning of the new portal area ruins for the Ayla Elder race to be used throughout the Riverlands. So we've shown off the Riverlands stuff in the past already.
Oh, I see.
And now you're getting to see a little bit further of those.
I'm watching on stream as well.
Yeah, it's lagging. I'm recording locally, so we can
Yeah.
we'll
That's
use
no
the
worries.
local video. Yeah.
So these, obviously you guys are aware you're coming back to Vera. Vera once had very large parent race civilizations, and much of the landscape incorporates kind of ruined buildings and these sets that you're going to come across in the world to kind of communicate that age and that distant past feeling. But part of that is determining the
Go in there and fight a giant cockroach. That would be scary.
parent race's original architecture and what their cities did look like, because there are going to be cutscenes in the game that kind of take you back in time to visualize the fall and the apocalypse and stuff along those lines, as incorporating a certain story elements. So in that sense, we create kind of the pristine version of the Aylan architecture, and then we destroy it down into these ruined points of interest and or ruined set dresses for the environments.
And then next we have a little teaser of a couple screenshots of some of the new tech that they're going to be showing off in the future. I don't know if you want to talk how much you want to talk about that, but I know they wanted to tease these a little bit.
I actually I went out to lunch with the environment team yesterday, and we were talking about showcasing this in the next stream, and
Maybe.
they pretty confident on
They
that.
were like,
So
"Don't give a timeline."
if they're confident,
future.
Showcasing this in the next stream, and
Maybe.
they pretty confident on that.
They were like,
So
"Don't give a time."
Okay, they were not fucking around, guys. They literally just showed the springtime, gorgeous flowers, fauna, all sorts of you have the nature all over the place, grass, tree leaves, and now it's all decimated. And I'm guessing that is snow, unless it turned into some sort of desert. But that definitely does look like snow to me.
if they're confident, hey, if they're confident, I'm confident. So I will say that I have seen the preliminary tech here, and it is freaking cool. These are just teaser images, but wait until you see the video about this tech and how seasons are introduced within the world. It is something that I think is going to be a very staple and unique aspect of the Ashes of Creation MMORPG. Its world is going to be seeing the drastic differences that are introduced visually for each biome and each environment when the cycles of seasons are introduced. And you're going to see that tech, which has taken a lot of effort from our technical art teams and from the environment teams in accomplishing, but it is something that it feels just so good. And of course, it has deeper implications, right? As it applies to certain systems like crop rotations and being able to kind of grow things, but also how does that affect the economy? Like if a particular region moves into a season and that week you can't grow a particular type of good, but another region halfway across the world can grow that good, and you talk about moving those goods across regions so that they're relevant to either craft workbenches or you can sell them in the local economies.
Yep, which would mean that's sort of like Arcade. I don't know if any of you guys ever heard of that game. Here's another game I'm going to bring up. Like I said, I played so many different MMORPGs. But Arcade made it to where you had to travel from one side of the world to the other and bring goods over to that area. I remember me and my boys would hop on top of this sort of like flight deck, and it would take you all the way across the map, almost like a balloon. And you would have a horse or a carriage full of a bunch of different items, and you would go across the map because the farther you are, the more money you could make, and you could redistribute slash sell the goods. I don't remember if you could. I don't think you could redistribute them to players or anything in the other regions in Arcade, but it was meant to sell to like NPCs to make more gold from that product, which this could be a new innovation when it comes to Ashes of Creation. Whereas instead of selling it to an NPC, maybe, you know, people that are looking for that type of product, you can go ahead and sell to them. Decron also had it to where you had mini shops. Now, I don't think you should have to leave your computer running, but you know, it'd be cool if there was like a shutdown mechanic where you shut down, save your shop, and then it just, you know, you have a shop that's up and about, and you could sell goods, you know, to people. And then I guess if you get raided in Siege, then I guess you lose all your. I don't know, but you know, there's a couple ideas that I came up with, but I could definitely see where this is going.
That is a major indicator of movement of goods, and movement of goods carries risks, and risks can create political foes and friends. So, you know, all that stuff is something as simple as just a climate can have cascading consequences across the entirety of the game. And yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
All right, moving on to our character goodness. I'm looking at, oops, that was supposed to be last. You saw nothing. The first one here is our Sleep Seers Rement, as you've seen before, and I'll play the 3D element of this. This is the 3D model of it. Our artists are so amazing. You see concept art, and pretty much everything looks just like the concept. So pretty sick, awesome headdress. You can kind of see how
Yeah,
the
it
light
looks
reflects on
great.
everything.
Who did this one? Was Danny, Eli?
I didn't. I forgot to put the names on
Uh-oh.
these ones, so I don't want to give credit to someone with the wrong names.
That's true.
And then the next one here is our Steed of the Frayed corpse.
Look at that bad boy! Woo! I'd ride that motherfucker. Oh, that thing's cute as hell.
Work in progress. You guys might get your bingo card.
Aww,
I would love it in
so
red.
Good.
All right, and then the next one is
Hairy,
the lovely amethyst bow bite.
Llamas with mohawks, dude. Look at this. Straight tails.
Aw, it's like a little alpaca.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was basically like alpaca
like a
plus
llama
a
alpaca?
turtle together. That's how I designed it when I was designing
It's
that
it's an alpama.
And turtle, yeah, because you can see the shell
talpama.
on it. That's like the little bits of
Talpama.
shell. That's pretty cool.
Turtle, alpaca,
I don't think
llama.
a turtle and a llama can get
and
down
then
and
next we have
dirty
our
and create one of
Rockhawk,
those. But I mean,
which is looking so
I like
sick.
the idea of,
Rockhawk.
you know,
Rockhawk.
I like that.
mixing.
And
Lava
don't
bird.
say it too fast.
Margaret,
Very subtle lava.
Unbelievable.
There's like the entire bird looking like a phoenix. I
Come
like
on,
that.
we all know where that was going.
Unbelievable.
Almost like stonish wings,
Okay,
like obsidian type wings that
next
still
up,
maybe,
we have our work
know,
in
can
progress, a
flutter.
scarab, but we haven't really had.
Oh, a
I know there's been
scarab!
people
Look at that!
asking
Oh, that is really
for-
cool. It has
for
like armor
bugs.
on it
So here you go.
instead of like the
Oh,
regular
little beetle
like
dude.
chitin type of
Yeah.
shell. It has
how
like
big is
almost like
that?
a metal
I would assume
exterior.
it's probably a big beetle.
That's
that you're gonna
cool.
fight.
Beetle.
But I'm sure they can make little ones too.
Yeah.
Then we've got the thing you totally didn't see earlier, which is the work in progress of the scorpion boss. And we do have an image for scale.
Yeah, they were saying scale, right? I want you to see how small that person is compared to that giant ass scorpion. Is this a world boss? You know what I mean? Because you're gonna need like 100, 200 people to take this thing down. I would assume.
Right there.
Unless you're casting a planet bomb.
Oh yeah.
Sick.
This guy is scatty.
So sick.
I think either Jinsey or Keith is working on this one.
I don't want to say who it is if I have it wrong. But yeah,
You know, he just looks like he's misunderstood.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally not gonna attack you and eat your face.
No, he seems like a cuddle bug. You know what I mean? No pun intended.
So cuddly with all those spikes.
Yeah, imagine those spikes. No, they're not meant to poke you. They're meant to embrace you.
All right. Whatever you're into, Steven. And of course, that wraps up this segment for our character art. We'll move on to our Q&A and try to answer as many questions as we can here. I know we do have a hard cutoff at some point because Steven has another meeting. He is fairly big
All right, guys,
fan.
I'm gonna go ahead and finish
The first
this.
one here we have here
I'm not
is
gonna go ahead
about
and do the
role play.
Q&A. If you guys wanted to look at
And the
that
question is,
yourselves, go
will the
ahead.
custom text chat command
So,
/e/emote/me
yeah,
or some
no,
variant of
that was
it
awesome,
be
guys. That
in
was
the game
awesome.
for role
Go
play?
ahead,
And they don't mean
you know,
like emotes like
like,
dancing and stuff
comment,
like that. They
anything of
mean
that
like
nature
can
actually
they
helps me
type in the
out to
text that
see
they
if
want to
if people
type in?
actually like
Yeah,
videos like this.
I think that
This is like
wasn't
one
that
of my
present
first
in Alpha
YouTube
1? I
videos
think it
back,
was in Alpha 1.
so it'll
Like you
really
could
help
type the
to
slash
sort of guide where my content's
emote you
gonna be.
wanted and it would
Hey guys, it's List of Deaths here. Again, thank you for watching my video. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Here are my links, and go ahead and click on them.